to um, I am now going to what is it called?
How did this happen?
I'm live.
Trying to answer as a Massachusetts.
Okay. You want me to check your Facebook?
Yeah, but you know what? The checking my Facebook, the person we need to check the guest.
Okay, I'll call the guest right now.
Okay, thank you so much. Because that's always the rub.
Outside his home. Sarah is an employee of the United States Air Force National Intelligence Specialist. Attorney General Merrick Garland says will be charged with unauthorized removal of classified national defense information. Investigators believe Teixeira led an online chat group where the documents about the Ukraine war were posted.
This was a deliberate criminal act.
Pentagon spokesman Pat Ryder referred all questions to Garland's Justice Department about the highest profile intelligence leak in years. The Biden administration is scrambling.
Okay, good.
Saga Megan, Washington.
In Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis has
Reverend Williams is on.
Hey, Reverend Williams, how are you?
pregnancy.
Good morning. I'm well. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. We are going to right now. Okay. Test your sound.
The ban does contain some
Okay.
including to save the woman's life, and drug-induced abortions could be dispensed only in person or by a...
I can hear her.
Okay, very good. Okay, fantastic. That's
Residents have been
great.
wading through knee-high
As they say, we are cooking with hot grease.
waters of rain flooding
Good.
Lauderdale in 6 to 8 hours.
How are you doing today?
Been using canoes to navigate
I'm well. How are you?
Oh, girl, I am doing well. Just, getting a lot of things done.
This is a
And, you know how it goes. It's just
China is
Oh, yeah.
one thing, I'm not complaining. It sounds like I am, so I need to check that. But, I'm just no complaints from me at all. None.
Good.
None. I keep promising to call you, but I promise you I will. I just had a lot of people who have passed on lately.
Same.
I think it's just a season,
Yeah.
And so it's kept me, and then I have a couple of other jobs too. So it's kept me running.
Sure.
It's just kept me running, but God is good because I still have legs. How about that?
still rising.
Yeah,
The recent
sure.
6 a gallon. I'm Rita Foley.
So I'm sorry, as you can hear, I am printing something.
WCPT Willow Springs
Sure.
and streaming worldwide at WCPT18.com. We are sure
These things were disabled,
facts matter.
and I need to get some of these things down.
Weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Michael Caron. For today, look for sunny to partly cloudy skies with warm high temperatures reaching the mid-80s. Then for tonight, mostly cloudy, a low of 60. For Saturday, a mixture of clouds and sunshine with highs still approaching 80. Then cooler for your Sunday with rain likely.
Is it really warm up there?
As well, back to 63.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful.
Rain snow mix.
Unbelievable.
And that's your latest Chicago
80.
weather update. Currently,
Yeah, we're supposed to get rain and snow next week, too. God has a sense of humor.
So they take it to the next level.
We,
So simple.
I'm like, oh, really?
Needle stack. ZipRecruiter for free at
Go
ZipRecruiter.com/.
back to
Here's
that.
what it's like to use ZipRecruiter. So many qualified candidates that it's easier to find the right ones for your roles. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. That's a lot of needles. So how do we do it? ZipRecruiter's power technology gives you candidates who are a great match for your job, and you can even invite your top choices to apply. So if you want less hay and more needles, then use ZipRecruiter.
And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. At ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/FREE. ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is often laced into illicit drugs and used to make fake versions of prescription pills. You can't see it, taste it. Suppliers mix fentanyl into their products because it's potent and cheap, and the dealer might not even know. Keep yourself and others safe by knowing the real deal on fentanyl. Facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
It's true.
As a professional musician, Lachi stays true to her creative vision, even with continuing vision loss. But she's not alone. For 50 years, the Foundation Fighting Blindness has funded research into treatments and cures for blindness diseases, providing hope to people with vision loss. And for Lachi, winning means using her voice to bring hope to others with vision loss. The Foundation Fighting Blindness. Together, we're winning. Help us end blinding diseases at fightingblindness.org.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
The life of every child is precious beyond measure. If you care for a child with a disability and have limited income and resources, help is available. Children with a physical or mental disability or who are blind may qualify for monthly cash payments through the Supplemental Security Income Program, or SSI. The program provides help to meet basic needs for food, clothing, or a place to live, and disability-related needs. It's money that can make a meaningful difference. If you're the parent or caregiver of a child or teenager you think may be eligible, call Social Security at 1-800-772-1213 or visit ssa.gov/SSI Kids to learn how to apply today.
Why don't you tell them how they can
That's
worship with you on Sundays? There's people already
ssa.gov/SSI
here.
Kids. It's real help for the children. Message produced by Social Security at U.S. taxpayer
Pastor
expense.
Tisha Dixon Williams?
Did you receive a call or message that mentioned Social
Please let
Security and
everyone know how
demanded
they can
immediate
worship with
action?
you on Sunday.
Did the caller know your Social Security
Sundays.
number or other personal information and tell you that your Social Security number had been used in connection with the crime? Did you feel worried that your Social Security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested?
Pastor
That is not
Tisha
the
Dixon
Social
Williams?
Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information,
Alex, can
or
you
instant
turn
payment.
this
Email or text
down
you
a
pictures or
bit?
documents, or use a real government official's name to gain your trust.
Is that better?
Okay,
Security
because
does
yes,
not
I wanted
accept
her to
payments by
say
gift
speak
card,
to the
prepaid
to the
debit
Morning
card,
Star so
internet
that they can
currency, or by mailing cash.
know where to reach her
Criminals
on
use these
Sundays.
forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Do not be fooled.
Okay,
Hang up.
still a little
Ignore
loud,
them.
Alex.
Report this criminal activity
And I know
to
I'm
the
always
Social
asking you to
Security
bring it
Administration
up,
Office
and
of the
well,
Inspector
not always,
General
but I
at
do ask you to bring it down,
oig.ssa.gov.
Thank you so much. Well, you know what? Just make sure you lead with that.
No, the 82nd Airborne Division.
Okay.
We never talked about it, and my mom knew not to ask. So
Make sure
Dad
you lead
buried
with
himself in work and self-medicated, and would lose his temper sometimes. Loud noises would put him on edge.
So
It
people
got
can know
rough.
where to reach you.
So I
Hey,
finally
everybody,
said to
like and share, like and share,
You gotta get
like
help.
and share.
As a family member or
Like
friend,
and share.
you may be the first to
We're going to be
notice
talking
when a
about Clarence
veteran you
Thomas
love
today.
has been
There
going
is
30 seconds.
some reputable
withdrawing,
polls
drinking
show
more, or increased
that 70%
anger
of
could be a
Americans
sign
want
of a larger health concern, but help
him
is
to be
available.
looked at
Dad
ethically.
finally went to VA.
You know, and when
one-on-one
the pastor
group
comes up,
therapy, and
please
got
put
some
me on
really
mute,
great
okay? Because I'm
tools
still
to
going to be
help him
printing.
manage things.
Okay?
And I got my dad back.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I appreciate that.
10 seconds.
Thank you.
Stories
Alrighty.
at maketheconnection.net and learn how you can
Stand by.
in your
Okay, thank
life.
you.
Treatment works. Recovery is possible.
And I'll send you those two numbers shortly.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Oh boy. Hey, Ed Davis, how are you? Hey, everybody, call in today.
Let's change the world. I am green.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Yes, my printer is back. You hear that familiar sound. It is Friday, April 14th, 2023. I am Santita Jackson. It's a joy to be with you today from AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and That's right, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and of course meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. I am streaming there, everybody. The Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Please get on over there and then go to YouTube, to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. I'm getting so much traffic that Facebook reached out to me, which is what they will do, and they said, please ask your listeners, your audience, to go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. They're trying to really put people over there. So if you would help me out, everybody, and get on over there. And I hope that you will go to rainbowpush.org and get registered for the Rainbow Push International Conference. It's going to be a great conference, and you will make it so. And I want you to be there because we're going to be talking about just the great issues of the day, And of course, at Rainbow Push tomorrow, Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson will be there. And we're going to hear the kind of Chicago that he would like us all to help him to bring into fruition. And I am so excited that he's going to be there, but I'm excited that we're going to have a whole lot of folks there. But remember, you can't send him or anyone there alone. Please don't do that. And whether your person wins or not, remember, voting is the end of the beginning of the process. It's not the beginning of the end. That's when you have to start to advocate. I don't care who wins. Once someone wins that office, then you got to start pushing, and you have to push in another way. So let's get right to it, everybody. Let's talk about Clarence Thomas today. His story is becoming the story, and I want to know what you think about these trips that he accepted. What do you think about the fact that the person from whom he accepted these trips, this billionaire, Harlan Crow, he has not had his name before the court, but at least 8 groups that he funds who support issues that are important to him and his business interest. Their cases have been before the Supreme Court, and each and every single time, Clarence Thomas has voted in support of his issues. So what do you think about that? Is that important? Of course it is. So let's talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show. Let's talk about it today. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. How important is it to you that the Supreme Court has no ethical guidelines by which they are guided? You can be investigated in Congress on a rumor. On a rumor. Every branch of government, even your job, entertainers have morals clauses. That's why people lose endorsement deals, on and on and on. But not the Supreme Court, and they are the top court in the land. They have no code of ethics, and they are behaving that way. And this is the most business-friendly court in history. They started measuring this back in the 1920s during another Gilded Age. And now we see that the most business-friendly court, as Americans are moving toward populism, they're moving toward corporate interests. Think about that, everybody. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. And Dave Dowling, I hear you. You said you were one of the first to recommend that he be impeached. But remember, impeachment is not removal. Remember that. Impeachment is not removal. And so you go through the impeachment process, which is the indictment, and then you have a trial. If someone is found, maybe they did do this. Then the removal process begins if you are found guilty. And you may or may not be removed, but it's important for us to really understand the stages that we are looking at. But this ProPublica expose has been fascinating. He's taken him to Bohemian Grove. They ride on Harlan Crow's, he and his wife ride on Harlan Crow's private plane. My goodness, Mr. Crow even bought Clarence Thomas's mother's home from her. She still lives there. So there's a whole lot to talk about, everybody. So let's get right to it. We got a lot to ferret out today at a time when fewer Americans trust the Supreme Court than ever before. You can't make this stuff up. Call me, text me call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278, sending much love to Matt Cummings. He needs to get well soon. He and his family just returned from a fabulous trip to London, and now he's a little under the weather, but I know he's going to get better. Sending you much love, Matt. All right, everybody, let's get to it. Let us get to it. April 14th, 2023 in Chicago, it is going to be clear, a high of 73 degrees. Minneapolis, St. Paul, it is going to be really warm today, 81 degrees, clear with periodic clouds. Well, you know, this is the time of year. It only happens a couple of times a year when so many sports are on tap. You know, we're going to be looking at the Stanley Cup playoffs soon. Well, guess what? The Flyers 5, the Chicago team, I'm not going to call their names, 4. The Predators 4 and the Wild 3. So Chicago and Minneapolis, not so great a night last night. But wow, the play-in tournament is still active, everybody. The play-in tournament for Minnesota and for Chicago. That is, the teams are given the opportunity to play their way into the playoffs. Will the Bulls make it? Will the Timberwolves make it? We hope so. The Bulls versus the Heat tonight, and the Thunder will be facing off against the Timberwolves. In Major League Baseball, the Cubs will be facing off against the Dodgers, the Orioles against the White Sox, and the Twins, well, they routed the Yankees yesterday. Go get them, Twins, 11-2. I still love my Yankees, but you know, got to pull for these Twins. I'm in the Midwest, everybody. A 21-year-old Air Force guardsman is being held in connection with the leaking of classified Pentagon documents that were posted online, according to the U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland. The FBI said in a statement that it took the suspect into custody, quote, at a residence in Massachusetts for his alleged involvement in leaking classified U.S. government and military documents. We'll talk about that next week, everybody, because they're saying that he had no political alliances or allegiances. I find that very hard to believe, because some press reports have said something different, that he wanted to expose corruption in the government, that he wanted to expose what was really happening in Ukraine. You all can't cover this up. This is a 21-year-old child, young man who at a very low level in the government, he was able to do this. This is unbelievable, everybody. The leaked material posted to social media included detailed intelligence assessments of allies and adversaries, including the state of the war in Ukraine and the challenges Kiev and Moscow face as the conflict appears at a stalemate. Multiple officials told CNN that the suspect is believed to be the leader of an online group where he was known as the OG. Fort Lauderdale, wow, experienced the rainiest day in its history. It's being called a 1 in 1,000 year rainfall event. More than 26 inches fell in a 24-hour period, everybody. Let's pray for our brothers and sisters. They've had to abandon cars, close schools, and shut down the airport. Wow, 26 inches in a 24-hour period. The family of the gunman who was killed after he fatally shot 5 people Monday at the Old National Bank in Louisville, Kentucky, plans to have his brain tested for chronic traumatic encephalopathy, commonly known as CTE, his father told CNN. It's, of course, a neurodegenerative brain disease. It can be found in people exposed to repeated head trauma. Of course, we see that a lot in football. Is that what it is? Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has signed a bill that would ban most abortions in the state after 6 weeks. The governor's office announced late Thursday the law would make Florida one of the most restrictive states in the country to obtain an abortion, and follows moves by other Republican-led states to curb the procedure after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. And those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. Everybody, I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. But of course, we have got the anointed Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams, First Baptist Church of Bridgehampton, New York. How you doing, Pastor? Uh-oh, where is she? Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams?
I'm here.
Okay. All right. It's good hearing your voice today. And how can we worship with you on Sunday before you get into the good news today?
Can you repeat that?
How can we worship with you on Sunday? This is just before you get into the good news.
Sure, yes. You can worship with us on Sunday on YouTube. Please subscribe to our channel, First Baptist Church of Bridgehampton. And we are
on mute
every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
All right, let's get to the good news.
Fantastic. Well, we are all coming off of a Holy Week.
Back on mute.
One that said I had marked myself safe. It was an aggressive and a wonderful week, but guess what? We all got through it, and I'm sure we're better for it. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about when I walked through. If any of you are on TikTok or any social media, you know that there's what is called the walkthrough challenge. And it's really about making a fantastic entrance. It's really about preparing your mind and your headspace to blow people away when you walk into a room. Whether that's a fantastic fragrance or a fly outfit, when you walk through, the idea is that people will notice you. And I've noticed that us as a society, us as a people, we are always concerned with making a grand entrance. We're always concerned about walking through. In other words, getting through where we are right now, much like Jesus walking through the tomb and making a fantastic exit. And I say, Santita, the only thing that beats a grand entrance is a fantastic exit. But how do we get through? What I have found is walking through sometimes is not as easy as we think. There are steps that you have to take in order to walk through what you are currently going through. And the first thing that I have found when it comes to walking through is in order to walk through, you've got to be willing to work through. If we're honest today, I've come to find that you never get a second chance to make a first good impression. How are you walking through? How are you showing up? It matters. And don't we wish that for every event we provided a grand entrance where we could just walk through unscathed and unbothered? But the truth of the matter is, depending on the difficulties of our situations, we rarely walk through. If we're being honest today, the best that most of us can hope for is to stumble through or fight through or crawl through. Sometimes we're dragged through. And while we hope to breathe through, the reality is no one knows what you've been through down through the years. And when we track the trail of the two tomb raiding women on that Sunday morning, we find that they make this dramatic entrance. And now I've done some research on what it takes to make a good entrance, to begin to walk through. And I believe these women got the memo, because I found that in order to walk through, the first thing you have to be willing to do is work through. According to industry experts, the first rule to making a grand entrance is to assess the situation before you walk in. The text tells us that early Sunday morning, they had already begun to devise the plan of who was going to roll the stone away, what they would encounter. I can see these two women talking and talking with each other, strategizing how this stone is going to be rolled away. What formula would they use? It was very early on Sunday morning, and they're walking, talking, scheming, planning. I've also come to find out if you want something done, if you want a plan to be devised, give it to a woman to do it. They prepared for what they were going to come up against. They knew there were two major obstacles, the soldiers and the stone. What major obstacles are standing in your way today? Where have you been stonewalled? What people are standing in your way that need to be moved? And what plan have you devised to overcome those obstacles? I love these women because they didn't know what they were going to do, but they knew they were going to do something. I want to encourage somebody today and say, it's okay if you don't know what you're going to do about your obstacle, but you need to do something. The days of just allowing things and people to stand in your way are over. Begin to work it out so you can walk it out. And that's what they did. They walked through it because they had the courage to work through it. Obstacles are big, but you can overcome challenges when you learn how to look at them differently. You have to say to yourself, not God, I've got big problems, but problems, I've got a big God. That's one way to work it out. Have the confidence to say, I know I can overcome this. I know I can reach this goal. I know I can conquer whatever it is that is in front of me. I'm saying today that the thing that was preventing them from moving forward was a stone. But here's what I want you to know today, that your stone today can be your stage tomorrow if you're willing to work through it. Whatever obstacles you're facing today, focus on what you're capable of, not on what's holding you back. Sometimes what appears to be an obstacle is really an opportunity. Your stone today can be your stage tomorrow. What can you do instead of what you can't do? Who can help you get through what you're facing? What rewards lie on the other side of the obstacle? And what can the obstacle teach you about your future? And no matter what, form a plan to get through what you're trying to walk through. And that's the good news.
Amen. I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. Everybody has a story, don't we? Each one of us. Everybody. That's
everybody
why
has
you're
a
not.
store and everybody has a stone.
Oh, everybody's got a stone. That's why I'm like, you all, hey, you got to watch this. You got to watch what you say to people. You don't know what is driving them. You never know. You never, ever, ever know. And I want to thank you for that because I needed that word today. When and how can we worship with you?
You can worship with us every Sunday morning on YouTube, the First Baptist Church of Bridgehampton, at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'd love to have you.
Oh, amen. Amen. Thank you so much for that. I'm sending you so much love. And your book, what is the name of it and how can we get it?
The book is I See You, Sis, Inspirations from Heroic Women of the Bible Hidden in Plain Sight. And you can get the book on Amazon.
All right. We love it. And get the book because it has blessed me, and I know that it will bless you. Well, Takesha is saying amen. Barbara Bacon. Robert says hallelujah. Joyce says hallelujah. Amen, amen, amen. Barbara, all of you, that's right. You moved people today because we all have something, everybody. You never know. Don't think, as John Lennon said, nobody gets out of this alive.
That's right.
We are all going through something. Believe me, you pay a price. The real estate, wherever you are, costs. I remember a very, very dear friend of mine who, it turns out, was quite ambitious. She said to me one day, we were all together, she said, you know what, I want to be just like your mother. See, the thing is, I want what your mother's got. I said, are you sure about that? She looked at me. I said, no, my mother pays a high price to occupy her real estate. And God prepared her for it.
Yeah.
God prepared her for it, and she's around a lot of people who you're not around who help her to hold the line.
That's right.
Okay. I said, so now you need to, and the Lord lifted this woman, and I said, well, God bless you, because this is not easy. It's not as easy as it looks. It never is, everybody.
Never is.
It never is. Don't ever say, Pastor, I when people say, if I were them, I would. I'm like, no, you wouldn't.
No, you wouldn't. And you're not them.
You're not them. You don't know. And I would never say that to my father, to my mother, to my brother, to my sister. No, just be quiet. You don't know what happens when people shut that door. Right. Stop it. Just stop, y'all. Stop judging people. Start loving people. And pray that they will be all right.
That's right.
We just need to stop it. The name of your book again, because it is a blessing. Because we do need to be seen. That's what you're talking about today.
That's right. I see you, sis. Inspirations from Heroic Women of the Bible hidden in plain sight.
See somebody. Everybody. You know what? Clarence Thomas is having not a great week, not a great moment. ProPublica came out with this report that really is taking you into this special relationship that he's got with Harlan Crow, who's a billionaire, who lets him fly on his plane, who bought his mother's house, gave him the money for it, and Clarence Thomas has voted in his favor in many Supreme Court cases, and all of them that have come before the court, quite frankly. But there's a new poll that shows that 70% of Americans support an ethics investigation into all Supreme Court justices. They have no code of ethics, Pastor, by which they must abide. Now, when my brother was in Congress, I found out, this is my first brother, praise the Lord, got another brother in Congress. He said, you can be investigated on a rumor. And the things that they put my brother Congressman Jackson out for, another guy had spent about $3 million or so, and they didn't touch him. And the thing is, what people have to understand is that once you've raised that money, once you retire, it's yours. There's that. Right. And they wanted nothing back. They did want him out of Congress. All this stuff is political, so I'm always trying to figure out what is going on, why. But one of the things that we're beginning to see, what we can excavate from this, is that the Supreme Court, they have no rules. They can do whatever they want to do, and they do. And you better not ask about it. But you know what? That's on us. We, the people, can hold them accountable. We, the people, can make some changes, like right now. Let's talk about Clarence Thomas and this relationship, as Prince would say, What's this strange relationship? Ship. Call me at 773-763-9278. And please go to rainbowpush.org and get registered for the Rainbow Push International Conference, July 15th through the 19th. A lot of people are going to be there, and you should too. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a moment.
Joan Esposito,
Thank
live,
you
local,
so
and progressive
much.
on
I'm sending you
WCPT
so much
Willow
love.
Springs is powered by ComEd. See how ComEd is preparing for a clean energy future at ComEd.com/clean energy.
How do you know if your sump pumps are working? More importantly, how do you know if they're not? At Permaseal, we know the only way to ensure your pumps are in working order is to test them every day. We all lead busy lives. Most people don't even think about their sump pumps until there's a big mess in the basement. Permaseal can now offer you exclusively the best solution to keeping your basement and crawl space dry all the time. Introducing the Basement Defender, the only device that will activate and test your primary and backup pumps every day and alert you to any problems. It will also test and alert you to changes in your basement temperature and humidity levels.
Miss Wells is on.
Okay, wonderful. And I'm sending you
Our Basement Defender
2 more
customers have the
numbers
ultimate peace of mind. They know
right
that their
now.
pump equipment properly, allowing them
And
to
they
rest
should be
peacefully
on
during
with
storms.
me at
Call
6:30 as
Permaseal
well.
and ask about the Basement Defender.
Alex.
800-421-SEAL or visit Permaseal.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for all that you
You're very welcome, Miss Jackson.
Wake up to the freshest progressive conversation with Santita Jackson.
You have to do some thinking, and I think that's the inflection point that we are in right now.
And the
really
second
figuring out
number
exactly
for
who we
Pastor
are.
Wilson is the
Santita
one that you
Jackson,
want.
live and local from 6 to 8 a.m. on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820.
You're listening to WCPT 820.
Wells?
Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
Hi, how are you?
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist
Okay,
Michael Carroll.
I know it's a little
Thursday,
loud,
look for sunny to partly
it'll-
cloudy skies with warm high
what we've been
temperatures
trying to
reaching
do
the
is test the
mid-80s.
sound.
Then for tonight,
so that
mostly
you know.
cloudy, a low of 60.
Huh?
For Saturday, a mixture of clouds and sunshine with highs still approaching 80.
Okay.
But then cooler for your
You doing
Sunday
all right
with
this
rain
morning?
likely, possibly a thunderstorm as well, back to 63.
Okay.
Monday, a chance for a
I'm sorry, I
rainstorm
can't
at
hear you.
low
Alex,
40s.
can you turn this
And that's
down
your
just a bit,
latest
honey?
Chicago weather update.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Jones is on as well.
Okay, fantastic.
Finding
Can I
great
send you
people
the
to
2
hire
numbers
is
of
like
other 2
trying to
people
find a
joining
needle in a
us?
haystack.
Okay, I'm calling now.
Okay, I
Culp, right?
appreciate that.
Well, ZipRecruiter has mastered finding a needle in a haystack.
Attorney
so they take it
Jones?
to the next level. They make hiring so simple that it's like finding a needle in a needle
Oh,
stack.
good. I know it's
And
a little
that's why you
loud.
should
We're going
try
to work all of
ZipRecruiter
this
for
out,
free
but it's
at
great hearing your voice.
ZipRecruiter.com/free. Here's what it's like to use ZipRecruiter.
Okay,
They have
let
so
me
many qualified
say hello to
candidates,
everybody.
it's
Hey,
easier to find the
Andre.
right ones for your roles.
Dave Dowling.
In fact, 4 out of
Hold
5
on, let me-
employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. That's a lot of needles. So how do they do it? ZipRecruiter's powerful technology sends you candidates who are a great match for your job, and you can even invite your top choices to apply. So if you want less hay and more needles, head to ZipRecruiter.
And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. At ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/FREE. ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
You want to feel important. You want to be a part of something bigger, something that matters and can help change things. You want to feel like
everybody,
you belong.
please like and share the
we
show.
felt that
Like and
way
share,
too.
everybody.
And that's why
Like
we
and
did
share
something
the
about
show.
it.
Like
we
and
aren't
share
just
it.
Army National
Well, we are
Guard
going to be talking
soldiers.
about Clarence
we are
Thomas
normal
today
people
because
just
he,
like you. And together, we can make a difference.
and it really is
Take
not
on
just
your
about him.
legacy.
It's a
Visit
deeper, broader
nationalguard.com to find out more.
conversation.
Sponsored by the Illinois Army National Guard, aired by the
Okay,
Illinois
thank you,
Broadcasters
Jim.
Association. At
Attorney Hoffler's on. She's a little under the weather.
Oh,
We'll
no,
call the
no, no,
next
no.
guest.
Keeping our
CK?
global neighborhood safe is a tough job.
Yes, babe, you don't have to be on.
Brave military dogs. These dogs keep our troops safe by sniffing out bombs and IEDs.
Wait a minute, can you?
located in enemy positions.
I can't
Yet
hear
when these
her.
K9 heroes
Alex,
retire,
if you can bring this
they
down
often
just
left
much more.
overseas.
Okay,
American Humane
CK.
works to bring these valiant dogs.
Yeah, I know you've been
Reenact
traveling, hon. That's why I try not to call you when you're traveling.
Learn how you can help? Visit
Do you want to go?
Because facts matter.
Stand by, please.
To WCPT 820.
No, it's okay.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change
I
the world.
can't hear a thing, but you know what?
This is the
follow me when
Santita
we get on
Jackson
air.
Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta
everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, July 15th through the 19th. We've got our international conference, Rainbow Push. It is going to be a tremendous conference. We're undergoing a lot of changes and making a lot of efforts to really grow the organization. Just historically, we have done so much down through the years, and we want you to be a part of that. So please, because if you look at Tennessee and if you look at all around the country, all of this activity, we need to organize. These organizations, I mean, Rainbow Push, the National Organization of Women, the Urban League, NAACP, NAN, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They are all organizations that are designed to, they're your lobbyists. We keep talking about the lobbyists. So, corporations should have their lobbyists. But you should support yours. Your chief lobbyist at one time was Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Yeah. Along with Whitney Young and Jim Farmer and Roy Wilkins and Bayard Rustin. And we can just keep on going. And this is what these people do. So come on, everybody. I told you, voting is the end of the beginning of the process, not the beginning of the end. So everybody, let's get to it. And let's talk about Clarence Thomas. These stunning, if you will, revelations about published first in ProPublica that shows this closer than this relationship between him and a billionaire named Harlan Crow. He rides on his plane. He vacations with him. They go to Bohemian Grove, which is a super secret society of the most powerful men, certainly in the United States. And so we want to talk about that because that really does merit our attention, don't you think? I want to hear from you. 773-763-9278. 773-763. I'm hearing another station here.
Violent rebellion is doomed from the start.
Okay. I don't know what that is. Who are we hearing in the background? Okay, very good. So call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Shapiro Wells, what's going on? I've got to get some food from you.
Good morning, Santita. We are in full prom season, so please give us a call at 708-526-4546, 708-526-4546. We can do your complete setup, which is your balloon arches, your sweet tables, as well as also your custom banners, custom chip bags, candy wrappers, and gift boxes. Also call us because we are still doing food. So we can do your finger sandwiches, your hot wings, your barbecue wings, your spaghetti, your mazzatoli, everything that you need for your prom send-off. So call us at 708-526-4546. 708-526-4546. We look forward to serving you. Thank you so much, Santita.
Sending you much love, Shapiro Wells, and celebrations by us, everybody. And I want to encourage you to support Shapiro Wells. But you know what? We've got Pearl's Restaurant here in the city, great soul food restaurant. We've got Fanfare by Faye. We've got a lot of businesses, and this is where most of us work. This is how we make our money. And we have to support these businesses that are supporting us, that are literally feeding us. Please, everybody, support these local businesses. I love Amazon. I love all that. I love the big box stores. But we need to support those who are sitting right in our community, doing so much for us every single day. Sending you so much love, Shapiro Wells, today. All right, everybody, let's get right to it. 70% of Americans say that all the justices, all of them, need to be investigated regarding ethics. I mean, and this is in the wake of this ProPublica expose that exposed a land deal involving GOP mega donor and multi-billionaire Harlan Crow. It benefited Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, who has voted affirmatively on at least 8 of his cases that have come before the Supreme Court. Now, his name is not on the cases, but his cases have been brought by groups that he funds. Okay, because that's how they do it. You don't have to put your name on anything. You just fund it. But what else has he done? He's bought Clarence Thomas's mother's house. Clarence Thomas said, well, that's for historic preservation. That's fair. He's a Supreme Court justice, a small town, and they're trying to preserve that. But it seems like there's a little bit more going on here, everybody. Undisclosed family trips. The trip to the Bohemian Grove, which they continue to mention. And now ethics watchdog groups are saying that he needs to be investigated. AOC has said he needs to be impeached. Impeaching is not removing someone from office. It's an indictment. And then there's an investigation. and then we see where it goes from there. So, we have got a tremendous panel with us today, of course, and we'll be expanding at the top of the hour. We've got Attorney Darrell Jones, Transformative Justice Coalition, Reverend Jeanette Wilson from Rainbow Push, brilliant lawyer and pastor, and, of course, we have got Attorney C.K. Hoffler. She's got a little under the weather today. I don't know how she does it. She's traveling, has her own practice, and on and on. Everybody, please, like and share the show. Go over to my YouTube channel. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Antho. How you doing from France? Praying for my brothers and sisters over in France. Praying for y'all. Because the corporations want you to work until you die. Raising that retirement age. But no one's going after the corporations that are trying to make you work. They have the money. Get out of here. They're making more money than ever before. Sending you so much love today. It's a pleasure to be with you, my sweet Antho, over in France. And so many of you who are Abraham from Venezuela, from all around the world. But CK, I want you to set the table on this, because I think many of us, certainly, just given our experience with watching what Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. went through, with what Congressman Charlie Rangel went through, with what Congressman John Conyers, all these black congresspersons who are progressives, what they go through. And, you can be investigated in the U.S. House of Representatives and in the Senate just on a rumor. A rumor. A rumor can spark a congressional investigation on you. But no such entity exists. No board of ethics, no code of ethics is guiding the Supreme Court justices of the United States. And this is happening when we find that as America goes populist, this is the most business-friendly court in the history of the court. Since they have been measuring these things, they are now finding that the most business-friendly court, that is to say, they render the most pro-business decisions that any court in more than 100 years, at least. So I want you to talk to us. What is going on with Clarence Thomas? Are they picking on him, CK?
Oh my goodness!
Oh wait, that's gonna knock out your sinuses. Wait.
No. Good morning, everyone. I probably sound a little different because I am having a sinus issue. But this Santita, this issue goes to the core of how the highest court in the land operates. Now, every other layer of judges, of lawyers, people who are licensed to practice in these United States, we have bar associations that govern whether or not we can practice. But in the context of being a member of a bar, I'm licensed in 5 jurisdictions. When you're licensed in a jurisdiction, that bar association that you're licensed in has the ability to determine in that state, to determine the parameters of your practice, of what ethics are, what professionalism is, and the things that as lawyers you must do. And that binds all lawyers when you're licensed in a jurisdiction. Your license can be removed, you can be suspended, you can be disbarred, typically by the Supreme Court in your state. So there are very rigid guidelines within which lawyers are supposed to practice. You have bar associations that govern this. You have the state Supreme Courts that are the ultimate arbiters in most instances. And you have your clients that actually can grieve you. You talk about how, people can, in Congress, a mere, some speculation can lead to an investigation. Well, it's similar with lawyers. A client can grieve you, can go to bar association and say, my lawyer has not been communicating well with me. And there are canons of ethics that govern the communication that lawyers should have and must have with their clients. Or a client can say, I just didn't like something, they didn't tell me this, and it could be legitimate or it could be not legitimate. And that will begin an investigation. The bar association, that bar will investigate your conduct. So lawyers are heavily regulated in general when they're practicing lawyers. Judges, let's talk about judges, because I'm working my way up to the U.S. Supreme Court so that everyone understands how this is completely morally, ethically, professionally unacceptable, the conduct of Justice Clarence Thomas. So judges, whether you are whether you are deciding on parking tickets, or whether you're deciding on cases that ultimately make law, such as we saw in Texas, a federal judge challenged in his rulings, the Food and Drug Administration and the abortion pill, we'll just call it that. And that ruling of a federal judge had widespread impact in this country. Just to give you an example. That judge is governed by canons of ethics as well. There's a judicial code of conduct, I will call it that, and there are governing bodies in most jurisdictions that if you have a problem, if a judge has stepped out of line, if a judge is challenged, you go to this body, you can file a complaint, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's typically as relates to judges. Now, I will say this. As we get to the federal judges, and federal appointments are typically lifetime appointments on the federal bench, as we get to the federal judges, the level of scrutiny and the ability to do something to remove a judge, et cetera, becomes less and less viable. But there are at least avenues that citizens, that lawyers, because sometimes lawyers will file complaints against judges, that lawyers, that citizens, that people, that human beings can file against judges. When it comes to justices of the U.S. Supreme Court, and when you are a justice, we saw recently the most recent confirmation of Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. You were taken through such scrutiny. And Justice Clarence Thomas was taken through some scrutiny. Some. And it was quite frankly, I believe he was almost applauded for his misconduct and his bad deeds. But
then Chairman Biden blocked other witnesses who would have affirmed Anita Hill's story.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think it's important for us to understand that, what gets in and what doesn't get in.
And what, right, absolutely. And that is very important, Cynthia. That's critically important. It's also critically important for people to note that a lot of times the fix is in. The senators, they know how they're going to vote. The justices have tried to lobby and talk to them. And it because it's divided along party lines, a lot of times the fix is in. Some don't ever get a chance to go before the Senate because they're blocked. Others go before the Senate, have a horrific time, and just they won't make it through the process. And then others have a horrific time and are challenged significantly, like Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, and they make it through the process. So this is all getting to the question, and I know it's a long way of getting this into it. So why are Supreme Court justices allowed to do basically whatever they want to do? We haven't had an example of a U.S. Supreme Court justice shooting someone in public. Now, we haven't seen that. But through the actions of Justice Clarence Thomas, we've seen that they can, fly around the world and be sponsored basically by an ultra-conservative person. And you always have to ask yourself, as a citizen like me, I'm asking, something is not given to you for nothing. What does this mean? And what is that person who is sponsoring him buying a home for his mother? I don't care if it's a historical land site, Santita. You're not supposed to buy a home for a U.S. Supreme Court justice's mother. Have he and his wife received, and they're receiving gifts. These are all gifts that are being bestowed upon them. This has been going on for years. This is not new information. This has been known. It's just now coming to a head. So then you ask yourself the question, how can this be, and what is the recourse? Well, all right, suppose there is an impeachment process that is underway, that this is investigated, that there's a congressional committee that investigates this, and indeed they feel that his conduct is terrible, it's impermissible, it's not good, and he's impeached. He's still going to sit on that bench. He's still going to see Justice Clarence Thomas, and he's still going to be as determined and as resolute as ever to dismantle affirmative action and destroy civil rights, privacy rights, human rights, voting rights.
Well, CK, hold on 1 second. I think that just given that background, I want you to stay right there as long as you can. Attorney Daryl Jones, what about this ProPublica report? I mean, because I'm so glad that she started down here, because we don't, as lay people, we don't know all of the layers that you have really protecting the integrity of your process. And we know, there's a little mess everywhere. I get it. But how do you get to the top and there's no accountability? What are your impressions of what's going on here? And when you see the monies, the investment that Harlan Crow has made in Justice Clarence Thomas?
Santita, it's scary.
Now, why is it scary? Why would you say that? Because you don't scare easy.
No, it's scary because it begins to show the influence that money has regarding our judicial system. Look, what we are trying to push forward, and what generally is pushed forward in our society, is that we want a judicial system that stands independent, that stands on its own. The reason that Supreme Court justices do not stand for election is because we don't want them to be influenced by those factors that are out there, wondering if I make this decision this way, that I'm going to lose my seat. So we want them to be in there for a lifetime so they can make the decision that's correct in law, correct in fact, and in the best interest of society. This becomes scary with the situation of Clarence Thomas, because now we're seeing not the threat or the influence of money that could have on the Supreme Court, vote that could have on the Supreme Court, but the influence of money that appears to be occurring in this Clarence Thomas case.
Well, hold on. I mean, is it money, or just even to be maybe even broader or more specific, corporate power? I mean, because there is a report that shows that this is the most pro-business court, Daryl, in history. I mean, since they've been measuring this since the last Gilded Age, right, from the 1920s. And they said, as America moves toward populism, that was a New York Times article that I posted, the court is moving toward protecting corporate power.
And you're absolutely right. So one of the things that we see happening, and that the Clarence Thomas situation sheds light on, is that part of the way that the corporatocracy and the influence of the corporations take hold is that they get a member of the court, and they start feeding him in such a way that he can become biased toward that corporate entity. I don't believe that if you were not exposed to the niceties or the giveaways or however you want to phrase it of the corporate world, that your interest would automatically be, let me side on the side of a corporation as opposed to the individual in society. I don't believe that at all. I believe that when you start receiving and reaping benefits from corporate entities, that it then begins to sway your thought, begins to sway your philosophy into believing that you must do things to support the corporate entity because you know that you will be receiving, or your family will be receiving things in return. That's concerning to me, and that's the appearance of the impropriety that we have with Justice Thomas. C.K. laid it out beautifully when she laid out, the reason why we have all of these layers of protection and entities that are in place to check on what's happening with our judges. But let's understand this. Every lawyer, barred or unbarred, knows that they are to avoid the appearance of impropriety so that the society believes and can see through and believe in the structure of our court system. Both Clarence Thomas and his wife are both lawyers. When they're receiving this stuff from the entity, from the corporate entity, they know it's wrong. They know it looks bad. They know that when the light comes on, that America's going to look at it and say, there's something going on here. He's going to shade his comments. He's going to shade his decisions so that he doesn't upset the person who's helping his mama's house. For the person that's doing all of this to help build him, to take him on these $500 million vacations. All of that, it's factually accurate. It looks bad. You have two lawyers that know better, but are doing it anyway, and there's no oversight to stop them. So, certainly, kudos to ProPublica for reporting it. Now it's on us to be certain that Justice Roberts and that the U.S. Senate take appropriate actions to put some structure in place so we can put this spilled water back in the bottle and get it straightened out, Santita.
I mean, I hear you. I mean, because this is coming, Reverend Jeanette Wilson, Esquire, this is coming at a time when no one trusts the court.
Absolutely. And they should see, until I went to law school, I had this idealistic view of the United States Supreme Court. I thought these were some really brilliant lawyers who were placed on the court to the highest court to make some judicial decisions. But as you look at how you get to the court, those are political appointments. The United States Senate, based on who is in the Senate and which ideology of the president exists, these people are nominated and appointed by these senators. They're not elected by masses of diverse people. They're elected by 100 people in the United States Senate who generally have a majority represented one side or the other of politics. This is the highest court in the land, and they have no strong ethical policy that the judges must adhere to.
But Reverend Wilson, how does that happen? I mean, how?
It happens because you had a bunch of rich people who structured this system of justice, and the idea is the higher up you go, you're going to have the most ethical conduct. You don't. There are no rules that are governing these 9 people. And all of the lawyers on here know that when you appear before a judge and you feel that there's a conflict of interest or it's unethical behavior, you can substitute that judge. You could report that judge. Justice R. Eugene Pincham was brought before the Illinois Judicial Inquiry Board because he made a statement about white people in Chicago. You know, people in Chicago. He had to go down to Springfield to defend himself against what was considered to be unethical comments and conversations.
Wait a minute, and his seat was on the line, right?
Yes, they were going to remove him from his seat. As C.K. indicated, lawyers, if a person finds that we are dealing inappropriately with client funds, that's why we have to have client fund accounts. Where if I'm representing you in a real estate transaction, I have to put the money in a client trust fund. I can't put it in my own personal bank account because that would be considered unethical, and I'm commingling client funds with personal funds. How in the world we have a United States Supreme Court with no high ethical standard is unconscionable. I'm with Daryl. It's frightening to know that exists.
Well, how does that make you feel as a lawyer? I mean, as a lawyer in this last minute.
Oh,
I mean, as a lawyer, I mean, how do you?
But I think every one of them should be investigated. Clarence Thomas is just a bellwether for the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that they're all, the rest of them high moral standards. They're not taking gifts, and they don't consider that when they render decisions and opinions in these cases. So I just think there should be a total investigation by the United States.
Period. Wait a minute.
Period.
You know what?
And
guess what?
Have to report where they get they need to be investigated more than one time a year.
70% of Americans agree with you. They say, wait a minute.
I know.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right here. And something is not right here. Supreme Court trust and job approval is at historic lows, according to a September 2022 survey. Historic lows. And when you see this, of course, and when you've got your sons and daughters going to jail, when you getting your car booted every 5 minutes because you can't pay these tickets, I mean, you just keep on going, and you see that these people are allowed to walk scot-free. I've got 20 seconds for you.
Clarence Thomas was born in Troup County, Georgia, in a little raggedy house, and so now he feels emboldened to take gifts, expensive gifts, while he's on the highest court on the land, and he got there because there was pressure from those who he would listen to put him on the court over and against all of the outcries of women across the country. particularly Anita Hill, and that was not taken into consideration. He showed unethical behavior in those Senate hearings.
Absolutely. Well, and then too, when he talked about a high-tech lynching, then black folks said, well, maybe. I said, not.
I went on.
No. Stay right there. All you lawyers, calm down. Y'all so upset.
We cannot.
You and Attorney C.K. Hoffler and Attorney Gerald Jones about to jump through the phone today. Just calm down. Calm down. July 15th through the 19th, we'll be talking about this at the Rainbow Push Convention and so many other things. And, of course, Mary-elect Brandon Johnson will be at Rainbow Push tomorrow for our Saturday morning meeting. Get there a little bit before 10 o'clock. A lot of people want to hear him. A lot of people want to see him. We want to know what kind of Chicago he's ambitious for, and I want to know what kind of Chicago you're going to push for. And not just Chicago, but urban America. What's the agenda? Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Yeah.
Diane from Michigan,
so upset.
a disabled senior citizen
All these
trying to
crooked
get by.
people out here.
Henry from Florida, a veteran fighting to make ends meet. Elena from Arizona.
Okay, no, hold on. I'm going to
struggling
get to you.
feed her daughter.
Alex,
Hi,
can you
I'm
turn this
Connie
down,
Britton,
hon?
And I support Feeding America because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year, like Diane, Henry, and Elena.
Okay.
Learn more
Just
at
hold on one
feedingamerica.org. Feeding America, 200 food banks
He's trying
strong.
to call. He's trying
Are you
to
a
get
disabled Illinois resident with plans to start or grow your own business? If so, this message is for you. From now until May 1st, the 36 Squared Business Incubator is accepting applications for the Disabled Entrepreneurship Boost Award. Winners will receive up to $1,000 in funding to help launch or grow their business. To qualify, you must be a disabled Illinois resident with plans to start or grow your own business in 2023. To apply or for more information, go online to 36business.org. That's 36business.org.
There are over 10,000 reasons why steel is not sold at
Stand
Lowe's or
by,
Home Depot.
everybody.
Find tools for the job site or your own backyard at over
Alex,
10,000 authorized local
can you
steel
hear me?
dealers. Find yours at steelusa.com.
Yes, Miss Jackson.
Oh, honey, can you turn this down because we need to do crosstalk and it's just too loud, okay?
He'll have his first court appearance today. The Massachusetts Air National
bring it
Guard member
down
who was
much
arrested
further.
yesterday, accused in a leak of classified military documents. 21-year-old Jack Teixeira is an IT specialist.
It needs to come down
AP
even more.
correspondent Newman Merchant.
Teixeira was serving.
Miss Jackson, it's off.
It's off?
And
Well,
is
that,
alleged
can you
to
report that to
posted
Jim
on
too?
an
Because
internet
it's just
chat
as loud.
Months of documents.
Yes, ma'am.
As he's
US
making adjustments.
How about now, Miss Jackson?
That's much better. Thank you so much.
You're
Thank you. But make note of that, please.
Yes, I will send it to Jim.
Of course. That's just for you so that he can know what's going on. Attorneys, all of you. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, thank you for setting the table because we need to know, the code of ethics that govern lawyers. What did Shakespeare say? First kill all the lawyers. Not so fast, everybody. Just be nice.
It's almost, Santita, if there's a separate intent, and CK really outlined the levels, but as a state court judge at any level, you have a stringent code of ethics and there's a judicial inquiry board. How is it that as you go up higher, there's less review of the behavior of the justices, and they have more access to greater resources based on where they sit, and they're like isolated, we think, yet these corporate giants, when you talk about a corporatocracy, I can't.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
No. Please, look, y'all are so upset today. You're not getting through a lot of stuff.
When you think about the corporate control of the behaviors of the body politic, the government, it is amazing. They have to control the judicial element because when you have this so-called balance of power between the legislative and judicial and executive branches, what we see is a melding of power based on the economic forces that seek to control every aspect of one's life. And that's why former President Trump, if we remember, focused heavily on appointment.
Attorney Fancher's on.
But so did Bush.
Appointments.
So did George W. Bush. The Republicans do. They are institutionally minded when it comes to government. They come in there.
Absolutely.
I mean,
they control every lever.
That's right.
Legislative branch, judicial branch. You look at the state legislature in Tennessee. They've been controlling that for decades. We don't focus as Democrats or as African Americans on every level of government.
But that's why
people, we get.
But that's why David Daly's book, the New York Times bestseller, I've got to get him back on, Rat Effed, the true story of the secret plan to steal our election. And CK and Daryl have been on with him dozens of times down through the years. He outlined the plan. They said, look, you know what? You can have, we got to have him at the convention. You can have the presidency. Y'all got that? Because we got that locked up too. But you know what we're going to do? We're going to lock up all of the states. So we proceeded to lose 1,000 seats. And while it was happening, no one was talking about it. Democrats weren't saying anything. Well, you know, we've got to save President Obama. You know what? The only way you can save President Obama is by saving his legacy. And you don't want that to be on his legacy, which it is now. Losing 1,000 seats. Even though this was their plan.
Ms. Jackson, I can't get a hold of Bishop Grant or Commissioner Ellis. I'll continue to call.
Well, you know what? Don't worry about Bishop. Well, wow. You know what I need you to do, Jeanette? In a minute, the step and sip, a paint and sip. If you can, well, I don't know, but you all have the procedures there. Let me just say something about the paint and sip, and then if you would also encourage people to come to the convention, okay?
Okay.
Because I've been trying to get someone on to talk about these issues, as you know, every morning.
I know. I can talk about paint and sip.
Well, no, but just make it quick.
Santita, I sort of like the step and sip. I like that step and sip.
Honey, and guess who does not know how to step? But I know how to step. Greek step.
I know how to step. This is Chicago step.
Well, the early part of my adult life was in D.C. and New York. Ow! So, no. Missed that whole piece. Thank you so much. Ooh. All right, so you guys. So everybody, let's stay right here. And, of course, I've got a live read. Alex, again, thank you for everything, hon. Thank you.
Very welcome.
Whew, I've got these whole... Oh, do we have Mark Fancher up?
Yes, good morning.
Ooh, oh, boy. All these emotional lawyers. I love it. Wow.
Oh, Lord. Go, Mark, go.
Oh, my goodness. I'm kind of scared. I don't have the mute button either. Oh, my Lord.
Thank the Lord.
Oh, my gosh, help me.
That's okay. We're controlled by ethics board.
We're the only ones controlled.
Me, that's
15
clear.
seconds.
Okay, stand by, everybody. Silly people.
Stand by, please.
Thank you.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Oh, yes, we can. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's April 14th, Friday, April 14th, 2023. I am Santita Jackson. It is a joy to be with you today on the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. Boy, oh boy, are we going to have a good time when this Democratic convention comes. And when the Rainbow Push convention comes July 15th through the 19th. And at Rainbow Push tomorrow, Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson will be at 930 East 50th Street. Of course, the Saturday morning meeting, which has been ongoing for almost 60 years now. It started over at McGifford House when my father was a student at the University of Chicago. Well, we are at 930 East 50th Street, stayed in Hyde Park. So get over to 50th and Drexel. That's really where it is. That's the corner. So that you can see and hear from Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson. Get there about 9:30 because the meeting kicks off at 10 a.m. Call us at 773-763-9278. I want to know what your thoughts are about ethics, and the Supreme Court. Indeed, ProPublica has released an explosive expose on this relationship between Justice Clarence Thomas and Harlan Crow, mega donor, GOP mega donor and billionaire. big businessman. Several of his cases have gone before the Supreme Court. Of course, his name's not on those cases, but groups that he funds who support these cases, they've presented these cases to the Supreme Court, and each and every time they have won. Is there a connection? Well, I think we need to have an investigation and find out. But there's no ethics board governing the Supreme Court. At every level of the legal system, lawyers and judges are checked, but not at the Supreme Court level. I want to know what you think about that as you go before the court and deal with the court every day. That the top court in the land, there are no rules. They can do whatever they want to do. They can get book deals and not report them, which they do. They can get personal money deals and not report them, which they do. Does that influence their decisions? Of course it does. Or should I say, of course it do. Thank you, Reverend Jeanette Wilson and Attorney C.K. Hoffler, Chair of Rainbow Push, Court TV legal analyst, and of course former president of the National Bar Association, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. The brilliant, men were outnumbered for a long time. Of course, Transformative Justice Coalition chair and brilliant lawyer. And of course, we've got Mark Fancher, a brilliant civil libertarian and civil rights lawyer, but he's the author of The Negroes of Friends Village. You need to get that book. It's not a legal book. It's just a fantastic book, The Negroes of Friends Village. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. Are you among the 70% of Americans who feel that all of the justices need to be ethically investigated? What do you think? Call me at 773-763-9278. Robert, Takesha, Andre, Miss Robinson, Andrew Maloney, all of them. I want to find out. What do you think? Call me at 773-763-9278. In Chicago, it's going to be 73 degrees and clear. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 81 degrees, clear with periodic clouds. This is a time of year when all of these teams are playing. Who will go and get that Stanley Cup trophy in the NHL? Well, the Flyers 5, the Chicago team 4. They got to change that name. It's offensive 2. The Predators 4 and the Wild 3. In the NBA, we have the play-in tournament. Which teams will be able to play their way into the playoffs? Well, the Bulls are still in the running. The Bulls will be facing off against the Heat tonight. The Thunder will be facing off against the Timberwolves. And in Major League Baseball, of course, we have got the American and the National League teams. The Cubs will be playing the Dodgers. The Orioles will be playing the White Sox, and the Twins. Whoa, they had a rout over the Yankees yesterday, everybody. 11-2. Call me at 773-763-9278. I want to hear from you. I want to hear what your thoughts are with respect to this discussion that we are having right now about ethics and the Supreme Court. Call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-WCPT. Let's talk about what's happening with this leak, everybody. This leak, this military leak. What do you think is happening, everybody? What do you think is happening? It's a 21-year-old who they say has done this. This 24-year-old Air Force Guardsman is being held in connection with the leaking of classified Pentagon documents, including documents about Ukraine in real time, according to the U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland. The FBI said in a statement that it took the suspect into custody at his parents' home in Massachusetts for his alleged involvement. He was known as the OG in this social media site. So what do you think about this, everybody? Florida floods, Fort Lauderdale, 26 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. They're calling it a 1 in 1,000 year rainfall event. Emergency rescues forced drivers to abandon their cars, close schools, and even shut down the airport, which is supposed to open later today. God bless the people of Fort Lauderdale. The family of the gunman who was killed after he fatally shot 5 people Monday at the Old National Bank in Louisville, Kentucky, plans to have his brain tested for CTE. That is that disease that afflicts so many football players, his father told CNN yesterday. And so we will see what will happen. They said that he had 3 significant, they believe that he had 3 significant concussions during his time playing sports in middle school and high school. Wow, everybody. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has signed a bill that would ban most abortions in the state after 6 weeks, the governor's office announced late Thursday. And those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. You know, we are fighting for your financial freedom. And if you think that you want to own a house, it is possible, even in this crazy environment, everybody. It is possible. And I want you to reach out to Team Hochberg to make that happen. Team Hochberg. Call them at 855-56-DAVID. 855-56-DAVID. If you're a first-time home buyer, and you're a first-time home buyer, if you have not owned a home in the last 3 years, if you have not owned a home in the last 3 years, you are a first-time home buyer, and you need to call Team Hochberg. First-time home buyers made up just 26% of the market last year, down from 34% the year before, and down from numbers years before. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have said, you know, we're alarmed by this because at the center of the American dream is home ownership, and so they want to incentivize first-time home buyers with substantially lower rates. So if you live in Chicago and your household income, the total household income is $105,000 or $700 or less, then you might qualify for this program, but you got to call Team Hochberg to find out at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. See if you qualify for these tremendously low rates. These rates can be raised at any time, so you need to call today. Call them at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or go to 56david.com and read through. But call someone and ask them questions, because we want you to be able to do home ownership. You know, I'm going to really be making a drive toward financial freedom and really financial literacy. You're going to hear more about that on the Santita Jackson Show. So let's get right to it. Everyone is trying to figure out what's going on with the Supreme Court. AOC has said, look, Clarence Thomas needs to be impeached. You need to be clear, an impeachment is not removal from office. It is an indictment, and then you have a trial, and then you'll see if you'll be removed. But 70% of Americans say, look, we need to ethically investigate all of these justices. Before we pivot there, Reverend Jeanette Wilson, we have a paint and sip event April 22nd at Rainbow Push from 3 to 6. It's $50. We are on a fundraising drive for Rainbow Push. Tell us about it.
Well, it's just a fun fundraising drive. What we want people to do is get a membership, and with this $50,
Ms. Jackson, you have a caller.
And we're encouraging people. I know some of you know how to step, but do you know how to paint and sip? I want you to know that we're trying to go to your artistic side, to your fun side, at the same time raise a little funds for the organization. It's going to be great. You don't want to miss it. As we're pushing towards our convention this year, we want people to know it's going to be informative, inspirational, but also it's going to be fun. And so join us at Paint and Sip. You can call the front desk, 773-3366, right now. No, not right now, but today.
That's right, after 9 o'clock. Everybody.
For your paint and sip.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you know, we got to pivot because, you know, July 15th through the 19th, we've got our international conference. Want you to be there. You need to go to rainbowpush.org and get registered. And then tomorrow, at Rainbow Push, at our regular Saturday morning forum, we will have the mayor-elect Brandon Johnson at 930 50th Street. Get there early. The meeting begins at 10 a.m. Everybody wants to see him. Everyone wants to hear what he has planned. But more than that, he needs to hear from you what it is that you want him to do. I told you, voting is the end of the beginning, not the beginning of the end. I mean, you know, you got to get involved. You got to let him know what you want, and then you got to push him to make it happen, because everybody else is pulling and pushing. You better push. Call me at 773-763-9278. Let's get right to this. You know what? Before we get to the callers and Mark Fancher, who is joining this wonderful panel, Maria, what's on your mind?
Hi, Santita. Hello, guest.
Is this my Maria?
My community.
My Medi.
I'm feeling better. I'm here on Friday morning. I just want to say that, you know, as attorneys...
And wait a minute, I was about to say, and Maria is a lawyer. All you lawyers... Wait a minute, before you say anything, why are you lawyers in such a frenzy about this?
Because we're ruled by a ethic policy, rules of conduct. And those guys in the Supreme Court, and when I mean guys and gals, they know better. Okay, they know better. They are all at one time practicing attorneys. So they were also had to abide by the rules of conduct, okay, the ethic rules. So they they're not using, and i.e. Clarence Thomas, is not using their moral reasoning to know that what he's doing, and I'm going to be more specific, is what he's doing is wrong, because there's this impropriety that, I think I'm mispronouncing that incorrectly. There is this appearance that he is involved in something unsavory, okay? He should know better. He and his wife should know better. And for the attorneys, who are out there practicing and following the rules, because if you don't follow the rules, guess what? You end up with consequences, because lawyers can be brought up against the rules because they might have failed to show up for meetings, or they use foul language, or they continue to do work when there's a conflict of interest. Does this sound familiar with the Supreme Court justices? There's a conflict of interest, and they do not excuse themselves from those cases. So yes, I'm really not happy with what's going on with the Supreme Court. And I'm not going to say all of them, because there are a few good justices, and there has been good justices in the past. But there are a few bad apples that make it look like the Supreme Court is just not up to par. They are not exhibiting good conduct. They are doing things that shouldn't be done, and they should know better. Even though there's no policy, they should know better. You know what I mean? They should have these morals compass leading them in the right direction. So yeah, I take exception to what's going on in the Supreme Court, and I take exception to what Clarence Thomas is doing.
Well, and possibly others, and that's why 70% of Americans, Attorney Meddy, want an investigation, an ethics investigation of all the Supreme Court justices. Sending you much love, my dear sister. I'm so glad that you called this morning. It warmed my heart. And I want to see you at the convention. Meddy, comes out with that cane and she wants to dance, and we're going to make her dance at this convention. That's right. Love you, girl. Love her. Attorney Mark Fancher joins Attorney Darrell Jones, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, and Reverend Jeanette Wilson. Attorney Mark Fancher, what do you make of this? 70% of Americans say, hey, we need to investigate all of the Supreme Court justices. It is now becoming common knowledge that, they have no ethics by which they're bound to behave. I mean, that is just unbelievable. Attorney Mark Fancher.
Well, that sentiment is understandable, but, I think we need to look at a couple of things. One, what the designers of this system told themselves and what they tell us, and then what's really happening, what this is really all about. What they told themselves and what they tell us is that when you get to the level of the Supreme Court, you're dealing with people who have demonstrated the highest degree of integrity, the highest degree of professionalism, the highest degree of competence, and that before they even get those positions, that they go through the most extreme vetting, that they are investigated from top to bottom, that they are questioned at length, so that once they finally take their seats, on the court, that they are there until they either decide to leave or until they die. And that they are there for that reason because they want the system wants to ensure that they have the maximum independence, that they're not going to be swayed by any political concerns, by any public sentiment, that they're going to rule purely on the basis of the law, and that they will preside, that they will handle cases, they will address these issues in that independent kind of a way. And so because they've been so carefully scrutinized, then there has never been a belief that there is a need to have a system of accountability for them, which is easy to invoke and easy to use. That these are individuals of such character that they won't really have to be pushed out of their positions because they're going to abide by the highest standards. Now, we know that that's not true.
Absolutely.
And Clarence Thomas is the best example of it, but that's the thinking behind it. But what really happens in the society is that when it comes to systems of accountability and enforcement and that type of thing, there is a scale, a continuum, a range that addresses, that deals with the extent to which that is pursued aggressively and vigorously. It is law enforcement, accountability, transparency, all of those things are pursued most aggressively for those segments of the society that are least controlled by anybody. People on the street, everyday people, law enforcement comes after them with guns if necessary, with the every kind of imaginable weapon, incarceration, serious penalties, those kinds of things. These are for people who are very difficult to control. They've not been vetted, they've not been investigated, they've not been scrutinized to the extent that others have been, and so you want to make sure that they don't create problems. And so the degree of that decreases as you start dealing with people who are part of ever smaller, more exclusive kinds of professional communities, so that lawyers are investigated, but certainly not as much as street criminals. They are monitored, but their accountability is tested. They are held to higher standards than judges are. And, if even among judges, trial level judges come under more scrutiny than judges at the appellate level, and judges at the appellate level more than Supreme Court justices. So there's just an expectation that as you deal with these populations that are more elite, that membership in their group is more selective and exclusive, that there's less accountability that's demanded, less that's expected, and less enforcement. But the fact is that when you really get down to it, the accountability and the transparency that the system seeks is not with respect to whether individuals are complying with ethical standards and with laws. It really is trying to ensure that these people are complying with what's needed to maintain systems of power in this country. So that when they are looking at prospective Supreme Court justices, what they're really looking for is someone who's not going to go in there and do something radical and wild and unexpected in ways that are going to disrupt or overturn the system and the status quo as we've come to know it.
Wait, but do you think that's why they come from certain schools? Because to my contention is they're vetted, not just when they become the Supreme Court, when they're actually physically in line to be Supreme Court justice. That's why you go to the Harvards and the Yales and the Ivy League, because that's what they do. They preserve the status quo.
That's exactly what happens. And so to the extent that Clarence Thomas, whatever he's doing, may not be a threat to the status quo as those in power see it, he may be safe. There may not be any consequences for him, notwithstanding the fact that he's violated explicit ethical rules.
Attorney Mark Fancher, everybody. You need to get his book. I mean, as he and CK and Attorney C.K. Hoffler, Attorney Darrell Jones, and Reverend Jeanette Wilson, Esquire, they have been breaking it down. Get his book, The Negroes of Friends Village. Stay right here. I want to know what your thoughts are. 773-763-9278. You all have a lot on your minds today about this. I mean, what does this say to you? That the highest court in our land, that they have no rules. As we look at corruption everywhere, how can they look at corruption anywhere when they have no rules by which they abide? None. None, none, none. They are allowed to get book deals. They don't have to disclose them. So what if that book company brings a case before the Supreme Court? They can still vote on it. And then what about this lifetime appointment bit? I mean, everyone knew that Justice Ginsburg was in failing health. God rest her soul. May peace be upon her soul. That having been said, she refused to go to the White House when President Obama asked her to come over. Can you believe that, y'all? She refused to come over because she knew he was going to ask her to resign, and she was not going to do it. And look at what happened. You can't make this stuff up. You just can't. Call me at 773-763-9278 at 930 50th Street tomorrow. Get there about 9:30, but certainly by 10 o'clock we'll be in high gear. Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson will be at the Rainbow Push International Saturday morning meeting. So you don't want to miss it at 50th and Drexel. And then, of course, our paint and sip. But that's a week from tomorrow. But tomorrow morning, Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson will be at Rainbow Push. You don't want to miss that. We're going to be talking about the kind of Chicago that we want and need. I want to hear his vision. And then you got to let him know what your vision is. That's the only way that the good stuff can come into fruition. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Please go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook and go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Back with more of us in just a few minutes. All right, everybody, get to talking. Where do you think this is going to go?
Much better.
CK, that was you?
Yeah, I'm feeling much better. I took some sinus. I don't take medicine at all, but it was going downhill. So I took some sinus stuff, and I feel much better.
Sometimes you have to. But you need to kind of be still so it can work, right?
Yeah, well.
Okay. You about to hang up on me? Okay. Object of press.
I always say I can't use everything. You can't comply with everything, but I did do stage 1.
Okay. I just want you to know those medicines were tested on resting patients, not jogging ones like you are. Just wanted to let you know that. Just have a little bit of a background in science. But this is a lot. People are shocked by this story. I am not shocked at all. I am disgusted.
I'm not shocked because we've had stories all along. He displayed, I think it was Reverend Wilson that said, during his confirmation hearing, she reminds us how completely, I thought, bereft of ethical and professionalism he was. And so this isn't shocking. It's what's disturbing is the degree for me. It's disturbing. And what's really disturbing is I know in my heart, there'll be discussion, people will be outraged, but nothing. He's going to be sitting on that U.S. Supreme Court. And until they able to dismantle action, he won't rest.
Oh, now, are you on speaker, CK?
I think I was just moving further away.
Oh, okay. I just want you, because I want you to be heard when you say something else.
Yeah. So, I'm more concerned about the end game. We're going to be upset and armed, a lot of discussions, congressional people, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, he's going to be seated on the court. And they will put in place, even if they put in place some rules going forward for the justices, all that he's done over the past several decades will just remain all that he's done.
Because will anyone go over the cases?
I think they can't. That's what would happen under normal circumstances if the judge is being challenged, accused. What they will do, I know the case where there was a woman who had an affair with a judge, and she was a public defender. And she had an affair. They went over every single case that she had before that judge, every single case, to determine whether or not there was bias, there was a transcript, and it was very, very in-depth investigation. And she was ultimately exonerated. But, they had an affair, and that was the result. So, there is a process. I just don't think at the end of the day it's going to reap any tangible results. He will remain on that court. And it is important for people to be heard on this, maybe going forward prospectively.
1 minute.
But it's not going to change a bit in terms of, I believe, and I'm a glass half full person. I don't preach gloom and doom. I just don't think that there's going to be a change. So that doesn't mean we shouldn't express ourselves, and we shouldn't support members of Congress who want to bring about change going forward. I think we should. But I don't want people to think that it's going to result, based on my experience, in the removal of one Justice Clarence Thomas. That's not
30 seconds.
He might get a slap on the wrist.
But no, save that because we're about to come up. I want you to go to that. Then I want you to respond, Daryl. I mean, really, it's a conversation that we're not having enough of this talk anyplace.
10 seconds.
Okay.
And questions?
Stand by.
Stand by. Coming up. Hold on. Stand by. Coming up.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. 70% of Americans want the Supreme Court justices, all of them, to be ethically investigated. There's no ethical body that governs their behavior, that governs what they do, the monies that they take in, the trips that they take, all of it. This ProPublica report, while it is focused on Justice Clarence Thomas and the trips that he took, funded by GOP mega donor and billionaire and beneficiary of the largesse of the court, because the cases that he has presented to the court through these groups that he funds, they've all won with the help of Justice Thomas. This indeed is the most business-friendly court since they started measuring where the court tilts. That started in 1920 to 2021. We now see that this is the most business-friendly, the most corporatist court ever. And that is happening as America is becoming more populist, more people-oriented. So what do you think about that? What do you think about this corporatist who clearly, what did you say? Let me not take words out of your mouth. Mark Hayes says if Uncle Clarence, can't be removed, why bother with the investigations? Joyce says, I bet that billionaire got CT in his back pocket. Money, 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 money. And you all are reacting, and I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. But CK, you said something to which Attorney Jones reacted, and I want everyone to hear you. Attorney CK Hoffler?
Yes, and I have my sinus situation clearing up because this issue is just really making me sick. But, sick to the point where I feel I need to express. So we need to be outraged. We do need to challenge this. We do need to question this. We do need to go and support our members of Congress who are fighting for greater accountability. But I want to just give everyone a dose of reality from my standpoint. And I could be wrong, and I pray that I am. There will be an investigation, possibly. There will be people who will be outraged. There might even be something in the congressional record that says that this is outrageous and it's a conflict of interest. It violates all these ethics rules, professionalism rules, all the rules that anyone who's licensed to practice law is supposed to abide by. And there might be great opinions, amicus briefs, all of these types of things will likely happen. But at the end of the day, that one Justice Clarence Thomas is going to remain on the U.S. Supreme Court. He is not going to get removed from the U.S. Supreme Court. He will not recuse himself from a single case. And he likely won't even change his behavior unless there's some peace in what happens going forward, because that's probably the best that could happen. So I don't want us to be, that doesn't mean we shouldn't fight, because we need to fight, because every single issue of importance to our community will go before the U.S. Supreme Court. And if you have justices who in this way are being bought off for their vote, because that's what it is, let's be really clear. This is not, let's just go and have fun in the sun. You have people, this is how our system of government works. People lobby members of Congress, right? But the U.S. Supreme Court is supposed to be above this. That's where the travesty is, because they are the ultimate arbiters in this land. But they are not. And Clarence, at least we know Clarence Thomas is, and I won't.
You have two callers.
All the others. I really won't, because I don't know of any information other than some book deals and things like that. But I don't know of any information like this. But I will speak for this, what I know about this Justice Clarence Thomas. This is atrocious. We should be upset, but let's not get too. I don't think we should feel that this is going to result in his removal.
But you know what I tell you, you know what would prompt his removal? People marching in the streets. Silence is consent, CK. we didn't just get the fair, Voting Rights Act and then the Civil Rights Act and fair housing. People were in the streets. True. And I'm saying in a peaceful, nonviolent protest, if these people looked outside, and you and I both went to school in Washington, D.C., and Daryl, you're from D.C., we know the campus. You know the whole Hill campus, and they're all squished up there together. You know if they looked up and saw that grass covered with people, they would move. They would move. And so I want people to understand they need to, dare I say it, keep hope alive, and put on your marching shoes and let people know what it is that you want. This government goes on, this kind of rot is allowed, doesn't get rooted out because you don't say anything. You've got to say something. Let me get a couple of these callers in. We have someone from AM 950 Radio. How you doing up in Minneapolis, St. Paul? How you doing, sweetie?
Hey, this is, I actually moved to Duluth, Sunshine, Santita. This is Diamond Dave.
Hey, Diamond Dave. How you doing, sweetie?
I'm doing a Dynamo. Anyway, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
It's great hearing your voice. What do you think about what we're talking about today?
Yeah, so I think, you got to look at history, how did we get to where we're at? And if you remember, there was, when Mr. Thomas was being nominated by George H.W. Bush, the Anita Hill came forward with sexual harassment. And Joe Biden, the corporate or whatever the word is, he was the committee chair. And he did not allow her to bring fellow witnesses to support her claims of sexual harassment. Now, that was a miscarriage of justice right there. And and then for Clarence Thomas to win the battle of the American mind by calling it a high-tech lynching, but just because he was a man of color, that is an insult to all the survivors who had loved ones lynched. And it was not high-tech. That was a hearing. There was nothing high-tech about it. High-tech has to do with computers. Anyway, they should reopen that hearing first and just go back throughout the history. And then his wife has been involved in the election of various candidates for Trump in particular, and that's not correct. So anyway.
No, that's a whole lot. I mean, so what do you think should happen? Should he be investigated? Should he be impeached? I mean, that is not removed, but tried, so that should there be an investigation at least?
Yes, at least an investigation, and then I'm sure. Well, we'll see how that would lead to a trial, or impeachment. But certainly he should be. I mean, it only makes sense, and if he's the canary in the coal mine.
I think he is. I think he is a canary in the coal mine. I mean, and that's where you can appreciate Ketanji Brown Jackson really splitting hairs, C.K. Hoffler, before I go to the other callers, really splitting hairs. She was like, look, if you all come for me, and, we take for granted, I think, that anyone who's lived under the boot, women and black folks in particular, brown folks, indigenous people, we assume we're going to get investigated. We'll get, we're the last ones to get the jobs, and we're the first ones to be fired from them. We get that. So she is like, look, I know you all are coming for me. I know you're ready, and I'm ready for you. I'm not going to cross any ethical lines. Let me go to Paul from Seattle. Paul, what's on your mind?
Good morning, Santita, and everyone. I wanted to talk about the notion we was talking about just a few minutes ago about the idealism of how lifetime appointments to the courts, the federal courts, works. That the idea was that a lifetime appointment would ensure that someone would make their rulings based solely on the law and not personal opinions. And this was an idealistic notion that the framers used in writing the Constitution. But was it ever true? Was it ever true? And could they, or was it just their ideals? And remember, the idea of how people personally will respond. Now, I'll guarantee every one of these judges and justices on the Supreme Court and federal judges will tell you that they uphold that ideal. But do they really And remember that modern psych.
Oh, Paul, did you go? Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Well, what about these lifetime appointments, Daryl Jones?
Well, Santita, certainly lifetime appointments raise all kinds of questions. We understand that the intent of them certainly was to keep the justices from having to worry about the societal pressures on decisions that they're making. So, when we start digging into this whole Justice Thomas thing, what are the pieces that we've got to take issue with, right? CK very brilliantly laid out the issue of the public's response to what they see happening of the court, and of course you've continually laid out, and the papers always lay out the 70% of Americans that simply distrust the courts. They think there's a problem with the system. Then we dig deeper, and we see that with Clarence Thomas, just lifting him up as the example, when in his ethics report as a judge that he's required to file, he indicates that his wife does not have an income, that she has no income for this period of time. Well, then they do the research on it, and they find out from her employer during that period of time that she actually had $1.6 million of income that was coming in. The question becomes, why isn't this disclosed? Why are they saying none? And what should be the response to it? Because clearly it's a lie. It's a lie. And so the question becomes, what is the appropriate response? And then we start adding on what we see coming from ProPublica and those reports. Let me tell you, when you put the mouse in charge of the cheese, it ain't going to be reported that the cheese is missing, okay? They're going to think that everything is okay. It's important right now, because this is the Ethics in Government Act that we believe is probably being violated. But the Attorney General, Garland, has the ability to do that investigation and to hold them accountable if he finds that there are violations of theirs. I think it's incumbent upon our Attorney General to do it. It's incumbent upon our U.S. Senate to push them to have that investigation done, because we have to restore the integrity, the trust, and the belief of impartiality with regards to how our justice system, our Supreme Court is operating. That is at a minimum what needs to be done in this situation. Otherwise, we're going to see that 70% distrust continue to go up, Santita.
But Mark, what does it mean when, this court has the lowest approval ratings ever? More and more Americans do not believe in the integrity of our institutions. And, this 21-year-old who apparently was leaking all of this sensitive, real-time information. It was contemporaneous. They're saying he has no political views, but then you read other news reports and they say he's anti-government. He wanted to expose the rot in the government. I mean, you all cannot really believe that this young man had no political views. Are you serious right now? He had some political views. That's where you see January 6th. And it's not just a right-wing thing. You see it playing out all the time. I just think we're in a dangerous place, or just it's a chaotic, disruptive place, Mark. When you have, when this is happening, Mark. I mean, this is a lot.
Well, it is, and what we see is a reflection of a couple of things. We see, on the one hand, a court that increasingly is functioning as a court filled with hacks. People who are ruling based on their particular ideological orientation, and doing it in a way that is quite plain, quite apparent for the public to see. And you also have rising levels of consciousness among the general population. People in this country are not stupid, even though the system encourages them to be. But there are too many things that have been happening in this country's recent history which have caused people to wake up. Sometimes they're totally misguided when they wake up, and they do all kinds of insane things like attack the Capitol on January 6th. But there are also many people who do the right thing when they see George Floyd murdered in real time, graphically, in media, and they take to the streets and do the things that they think are necessary in order to bring about more justice. So there is a rising level of awareness, rising level of consciousness, and at the same time, those who are in control of the major institutions of the country continue to, in very blatant ways, demonstrate just how disingenuous they are, if not corrupt. So it is sort of an explosive combination, which can ultimately be a good thing. I think that when you have a system which by its very nature is corrupt and which is intended to preserve the power of certain segments of the society, certain powerful elites, certain wealthy families and major corporations, to the detriment of the broad masses of people who work and labor and suffer and who are exploited, and you add to that
the commissioner's back on.
a healthy dose of racial discrimination and oppression, it's time for a revolution. And
I think we're just about there. Well, maybe not just about there, but I think we're headed in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, the danger, if any, is that people, when they seek to pursue such, are not clear in their thinking about what the objective really should be. And I think that the real danger is with large segments of the white working class who are really ready for revolution, but who are totally misguided, and their confusion is the subject of demagoguery by people like Trump who send them off in completely wrong directions.
You know, I've got Texas Harris County Commissioner Rodney Ellis. I know everyone's waiting to hear what Rodney Ellis has to say. I mean, what kind of danger does this, you know, the court is at historically low levels of trust from the American public. You've got all of this money, in kind and real contributions that Harlan Crow has made to Justice Thomas, not to mention the fact that at least 8 cases funded by groups that favor Harlan Crow have gone before the Supreme Court, and Justice Thomas has voted affirmatively on his behalf every time. What does that say? I mean, that the highest court in the land functions with they have no board of ethics that governs their behavior and the things that they do.
Santita, first, is so good and an honor to be with you and your great listening audience. My mayor was calling me, so I had to hang up. He was reminding me that I was supposed to be at a breakfast at his office this morning. I had an event last night. I celebrate my birthday once a year. You know how we politicians do it. Speaking of fundraising, it was my fundraiser, but all my stuff's transparent. So I was up late last night. But you know, we think about how unique the institution is of having a court, the highest court in the land in this country. One of the fundamental tenets for democracy is transparency, obviously. You have a lack of that here. But also an independent judiciary. When Nelson Mandela came to power, he recognized, as important as it was to end apartheid, to have transparency in the government, knowing he had to make up for years of people being left out, racist, apartheid practices. But he also needed an independent judiciary because sometimes the political branches of government at the federal level are fights between states and the federal government, cities and the state government. You have to have something that has to respect the appearance of being an independent body above the politics. And we know politics is inherent, is a part of everything. The challenge is, well, how do you appoint them? Do you elect them? You know, how do they develop that independence? That's a big challenge in Nigeria. A lot of people who want to do business in the developing world. A big challenge they have is they may have a relationship and some transparency on the top, some version of independent press, but at some point, invariably, conflicts will arise. And somebody has to be the independent arbiter and develop a reputation, a stature, if you will, where you believe in them. And even if you disagree with the decision, you have enough respect for the institution that you follow what becomes the rule of law, even when it's an unfair law. That's why people went through all of that discussion in detail to justify stuff in cases like Plessy versus Ferguson. They didn't want to just go say, hey, we just racist. They had nice, flowing, rational arguments, pretty words to make you at least feel as though there's some logic behind this. And even if 10, 15, 20 years later you look back and say, how in the world could they have ever used intelligent people to justify that? That's the crisis we have today with this Supreme Court. And really, all the institutions failed us. The Senate failed us because they put people on there who, at least if they were politically to the left or to the right, they weren't thinkers. That's a big problem with Justice Thomas. He's not a thinker. In fact, now we know all those years when he wasn't saying anything, he was thinking, but somebody was pulling his string. And that's a real tragic time in the country because we need a court we believe in. You know, all those years when Thurgood Marshall fought those cases, you had the respect developed by the Warren Court, their famous historic precedents on how you created the stature that this court in America has, the way it got to being a revered institution, even when they were justifying the wrong things. And then you come to this, it's a sad moment in our country. And I blame the Senate. I blame us as American people, Electoral College, all the complications on how people got to the White House, but how they would put people on that court who didn't have some respect for the institution. They don't make a lot of money. Most of them, when you get to that level, could resign the court and go to a law firm and make double, triple,
10 times what they're making
on the court. But they do it because of the respect of the institution. But what's going on now? You have difficulty getting people with stature, people you want on the court to go. So I don't know how it sorts out. I don't know if the decision is to change the makeup of the court. Some people would say, well, we already elect them. I'm not sure that would work because the electorate can be fickle. So I don't know how we get out of it, but it's a real problem. I do know the Senate ought to pass a law, the House ought to pass a law where they have to comply with the same simple ethics standards that members of Congress and cabinet appointees have to put. You just can't leave because they're independent body over there where they just determine their own rules. There's no precedent for that. That's ridiculous. And you're right. I heard one of the listeners before I had to take that call from my mayor say, I think it was you, if they were going after Justice Ketanji Jackson, you'd be a whole different standard. And there'd be pressure on a person of normal scruples to step down from the court if this was surrounding them.
I want to get some closing thoughts from Attorney C.K. Hoffler, Attorney Darrell Jones, Reverend Jeanette Wilson, and you, Commissioner Rodney Ellis, when we get on the other side. Just for a few minutes on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and the Santita Jackson and Friends page. I hope that you've gotten a lot from this discussion today, but you're going to get a lot from these closing thoughts from this tremendous panel. Because, we push, when people say that when you are a dissenter in America, and they tell you to love it or leave it, that's a very immature view, because that's not what you do. My mother loves me. I know she does. But every time I see her, if she doesn't get me when I see her, and you all, everybody here, you know my mom, Rodney Ellis, you know her. If she doesn't catch me before I leave, the next time I see her in the middle of the conversation, she'll say, you shouldn't have worn that. Or, when you say that, say it this way the next time, because she catches the flaw in the ointment. When you really care for someone, you listen to everything they say, you watch everything that they do, and you try to correct the flaw. This is a flaw in the American body politic, and it needs to be corrected. It needs to be corrected. Mark, Fancher, it needs to be corrected. And the system absolutely needs to be changed. We're not the same country we were in 1789, 1776, 1619. We're not. We're different people. And so we need to grow. France is on its 5th republic, everybody. 5th. They might be moving toward their 6th if what's happening over there continues to hold, because they are upset. They're upset that corporations, while our corporations cheer Macron, who I like very much personally, appreciate him. But they want these folks to work even harder and even longer. Do you really want to drive through a fast food restaurant and see your mama there working? Your grandmama? Because that's what these people are trying to push us to. That's not right. And in France, they're resisting. They have enough sense of themselves to do that. And we need to resist this. The Supreme Court ought to be above reproach. The presidency should be above reproach. All of these institutions should be above reproach, and they are in the mire. They're in the muck. It's a mess. Let's make it right, everybody. See you tomorrow at Push, 9 o'clock, with Mary-elect Brandon Johnson. Love you much. Everybody, I want some closing thoughts from you. Ooh, Reverend Jeanette Wilson, your closing thoughts?
Well, I think the Supreme Court has to be governed by ethical rules. We expect the highest ethical standard on the highest court in the land, and we can no longer allow ourselves or the court to pretend to follow high moral standards when they have no checks and balances. So we must put checks and balances. We must march on the Supreme Court. We must petition the Congress to act on our behalf. When those young men in Tennessee stood up and people protested, they were reinstated. If we protest, we can have rules. We know that many of them, not just Clarence Thomas, sit on that court where should not have been appointed or nominated or appointed and confirmed by the United States Senate. We must challenge our United States senators to put some checks and balances on the highest justices in the land to protect the rule of law.
Well, look, Attorney Darrell Jones, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that Jeanette is right on point with this. I think that what needs to happen and what we should be doing is that we've got to really push in our U.S. Senate, our U.S. senators, to force the issue and to get it out so that everyone can see it documented and laid out and some accountability being called for. So what we need the U.S. Senate to do, though, is we need them to have Merrick Garland and our Attorney General launch this formal investigation into the Ethics in Government Act violations by Justice Thomas and his wife, and to have that report made public. And the way that happens, and I agree with Jeanette wholeheartedly, as well as yourself, Santita, is that we need folks to get into the streets to let folks know that we see what's going on and that the people are demanding that the disclosure be made. Because I think that once this disclosure is made, once we're able to force the Attorney General to take action and do the Ethics in Government Act violation investigation and make that information public, then we can start forcing other members of the Supreme Court, force Roberts, force the issue so that we have some type of accountability, some type of board, some type of commission that is formed to overlook the ethics of the Supreme Court. That's what I think we need to do, and that would be my closing remark with regards to the call to action that we need to have come from this discussion.
And we should have a call to action. And Takesha Howard, you said they don't care. I hear you, but we need to care. See, when we care, things change. Things absolutely change. Reverend Jeanette Wilson? Reverend
Yes,
Wilson?
ma'am.
Yeah. I mean, because we're going to be talking about issues like this during the convention. We have to do something.
We're going to be talking about all of these legal issues that the people have ignored and act as though there's this body of people that are going to do what is right just because they're placed in a position. No one functions without checks and balances. There has to be a check and balances. We've seen that in the faith community when faith leaders are allowed to take money and do things that they want to do from cities, governments, and other individuals, you have problems. There must be checks and balances because we're all human. When we do good, when we really want to do good, evil is ever present within us. The Supreme Court is comprised of individuals who are human, and they have flaws. So we have to help them. We have to guard them against their own flaws. And as you look at the history of the Supreme Court, we know that they have made poor decisions as it relates to African Americans. When I look at all of those decisions, I understand how they were framed, because they were framed to support the white plantation owners. So this is not unusual. Clarence Thomas is an anomaly because he happens to be African American. But the court has always functioned to support those who nominated them and placed them on that court. And so without checks and balances, they just do whatever they want to do within their own eyes. And we must hold them accountable.
Well, I mean, so what...
A job for life? Who has a job for life other than the United States Supreme Court?
Commissioner, what do we do? I mean, do you respond to political pressure?
Of course, if you're a politician, you put your name on the ballot, you have to. You got to have some sense of scruples on where you stop and decide at some point that's too far. I can't do that. Put somebody else in. But look, I appreciate what the press has done to bring this to light. But just as the independent investigations, independent inspector or prosecutor, there ought to be one on this. We ought to know just how deep the cancer goes, number one. It ought to be transparent. To try and get the statute back, at least know how far this goes. And then number two, the House and Senate do need to, as your guest said, pass a law, ethical standards that they have to follow. Not something where the court decides what its ethical rules are. I'd love to just decide what my ethical form will have to look like, and it's up to me. No. It ought to be transparent. It ought to be reviewed. Instead of the House investigating D.A. Bragg, there ought to be an independent inspector, special prosecutor. Look into this, see what's there. Now, whether or not they can prosecute or not is a separate issue, but at least look through the facts, make it transparent. And I think we go from there and decide what's next for our Supreme Court.
Attorney C.K. Hoffman?
Well, without a question, I agree with what the commissioner said, what Reverend Wilson said, what Gerald Jones said, that we need to hold them accountable. I think that when we say people need to protest, also understand that when you write letters to members of Congress and the Senate, that is also part of the protest. When you call the offices nonstop and want them to do something about it, that's also very effective for those who can't get there in person. But I do think it's important that if we don't now make known through actions our discontent and our complete disgust and dissatisfaction with what Justice Thomas has done, then the other justices will have full authority to match him, if they haven't already, and his lack of scruples, and there really won't be any accountability. You have to remember, when the U.S. Supreme Court, when the whole concept, the Founding Fathers were talking about the U.S. Supreme Court, forming this court, the three branches of government, it was designed really for white men. Women were not considered at all, and black people were not considered human beings. So we have to progress beyond what the Founding Fathers were thinking, because oftentimes you have people making reference to the Founding Fathers when they did this. You can't reference what the Founding Fathers were thinking, because they were not thinking that most of the people, many people who serve on the U.S. Supreme Court, and many of the people in this country were not even thought of. They were not considered because they were not white males, property owners. But I want to pose a rhetorical question. What would have happened to the late, great Justice Thurgood Marshall if he acted in any way similar to Clarence Thomas, how Clarence Thomas is acting? What would have happened? He would have been lynched. So we have to understand the politics of the situation, and we have to, despite that, and I applaud and encourage young folks, and it's not that doesn't mean all of us on this call, but the young folks today are demonstrating that they are going to continue to challenge injustice. And so I want to encourage those young folks to challenge this injustice. Challenge this injustice.
Well, Mark Fancher, your thoughts?
Well, I think that we should aim a little higher than just trying to hold Clarence Thomas accountable, or even to trying to reform the Supreme Court. The institution was designed in a way that makes what he did fine and acceptable. if you really get down to it, because he's not threatening the interests of those who designed it in the first place. We have to go back, as others have said, and look at the origins and how the institution, how the country was designed to protect wealthy white men and wealthy white families, and in modern times, multinational corporations. So he's not threatening any of that. And so I think that we would expend a lot of energy on trying to reform an institution that can't be reformed in the way that we would like to see it reformed. And so I think our energies are better spent on trying to strategize about how to get enough power that the institution has to do what we want it to do. And has to be subordinate to us. And there are a number of different ways that we could do that. But beyond that, to the extent that we do seek to try and reform the institution or to hold Thomas accountable, we really have to get out of the mindset that merely holding a demonstration is going to make that happen. They have become accustomed to us marching. They are prepared for it. They welcome it. They love it because they know how to control our mass demonstrations now. They plan them with us. They do not. Our demonstrations do not in any way cause them any problems. In fact, it helps them because it allows for people to go out and blow off steam. It exhausts the people because they've had to expend so much in the way of money and time and energy to come out and participate in it. And nothing happens during the course of the demonstration that disrupts the operations as usual. What made what happened in Tennessee so effective in the legislature is that what they did was disruptive. This was not expected. This was not something that they were looking to have happen, and they weren't prepared for it. They were not prepared for elected legislators to come into the chamber with bullhorns and with people and to just throw things into total chaos. And so they got results. And I think that whenever we're planning demonstrations, that we have to think in those terms. What is it that we're going to do which is going to disrupt business as usual? And if we really look at the movement in the 60s, that's exactly what it did. They didn't just go out and politely do things that the powers that be found to be acceptable. They disrupted things. They sat in at lunch counters where they weren't supposed to be. They rode in buses through areas where they were not supposed to travel. They put their bodies on the line in places where they weren't supposed to be and where they presented for themselves great danger. So we have to really remember that. Demonstrations and protests are effective only if they disrupt business as usual. And finally, the thing that I think that we really have to do, and it sounds trite, but it is the most effective thing that we can do, and that is to pray on it. Because there is a power, no matter how much earthly power we may seek and achieve, there is an ultimate power that can put all of this right and will put all of this right. And I think that we're more confident if we keep that in mind.
No, and it's not right. Prayer changes things. And we prayed our way into freedom. We prayed our way through slavery. We prayed our way into freedom. We've prayed our way into making things right. But God needs, as my mother would say, God needs some street fighters. Now, what are you going to do? What are we going to do? Because things cannot continue as they are. You're right, Mark. I mean, this country was constructed to protect moneyed, propertied white men. They were the only ones who counted, CK. You said it. Commissioner Ellis, you're right. And so you all have to peacefully, non-violently, not just protest, but you upend the social order by being unexpected. No one saw Jesse Jackson coming. Do you hear me? We were going through the South in a little van. I remember just as if it were yesterday, but Reverend had also been working 20 years as an organizer, because he is an organizer and he behaves like one. And we were just going through the South and registering people in little towns where black people were afraid to even come out to the town square because he was shouting, there's a freedom train coming, but you got to be registered to ride. I remember one place in Mississippi, the police were on one side patting their rifles, daring the black people to come out, and one or two, and then a few more, and then a few more, and then a few more came out to hear Reverend speak. And he said, now let's go get registered to vote. Because you have to get registered 2 or 3 places then to vote. Think about that, everybody. They never saw 2.5 million folks new folks coming on the registration rolls. You have to be unexpected. So I appreciate your marching, I do, and you should do that. But they don't expect you to get registered to vote. They don't expect you to vote. They don't expect you to call their office. They don't expect you to send email. They don't expect to see you at the office when they get there. Telling you, do the unexpected. That is absolutely brilliant. Have I missed anyone this morning? I think not. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., and everything really begins with Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson at 50th and Drexel at 930 50th Street, our Rainbow Push International headquarters. Cannot wait to hear from him. Want you all to be there. July 15th through the 19th is our international conference. You don't want to miss that. And then our Paint and Sip fundraiser. It's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, on the 22nd of April. But tomorrow morning, meet us over at Rainbow Push so that you can see Brandon Johnson, the mayor-elect of the city of Chicago. What kind of Chicago does he want to bring for you? I tell you what, a couple of days ago, he was on a picket line. That's what I want to see in a mayor. And then I want to see the mayor do something as we seek to get our children educated. These vocational schools, okay. Now I want the mayor to push these unions to get these black and brown children in, the unions, so they can get these jobs. How about that? But the only way you can, that he might want to do that, but you must make him do that. Doesn't mean you don't love him, it means you love you. Don't love anyone more than you love you. Because when you love you, then you know how to love somebody else. And not until you know how to love you can you possibly love anyone else. Think about that, everybody. I love you. Alex Castaneda, everyone give him some love. Boy, oh boy, does he keep things on point. And he is just moving and grooving. Thank you for a great show. Jim Addy, thank you for keeping things on lock for us. And Matt Cummings, sending you much love, wishing you well as you get better. But I want everyone to thank Alex Castaneda, who is my ride or die. I'm so glad that he is with me on this show. He does such fantastic work. He's pushing every day to make things great, and we just love him. So give him some love, everybody. Give Alex some love. Give him some love. Give him some love. And let's make America what it's supposed to be. It can truly be great. But we're the ones who have to make that happen. Yeah, no fairy tales and moon dust. We're the ones. We've been waiting for everybody. You sitting up here looking at the sky. Well, yeah, God dropped you down. You're the one supposed to do it. Okay? So everybody, go on. Let's make this thing work. Okay? I love you, everybody. Cannot wait to be with you. Ooh, you all made a lot of comments. I love all of you. Hope to see you tomorrow. Effie, I hope you'll be at Push tomorrow. Hope that you all will be there. Hope you'll be there. I love you. I love you. I love you. Rodney Ellis, hope the mayor doesn't get too upset with you for being with us today. Daryl Jones, love you. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, love you. Reverend Jeanette Wilson, love you. Mark Fancher, the Friends of Negro Village, that book, get it. I love you. I love you, Alex. I love my morning stars. Mwah. Love you all. God bless you. See you tomorrow at Rainbow Push, and see you on and speak with you. And see you on Sunday on Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. Love you, everybody. God bless.